I found
in
this
space?
really, really interesting company called Wayray, and they do augmented reality instrument clusters, which I found really interesting.
Really cool.
Yeah, so they take up the dashboard essentially, and it just basically. Now I know this idea has been around for a while, and you see them on Amazon and eBay and stuff, where you can just get a little holographic thing that will show you your speed and stuff like that. But they're rubbish. Yeah, but these guys are fully trying to do it. With maps, directions, and colouring the windscreen to like what direction you're going and stuff like that. It's really cool actually, and it'll point.
Is it an active windscreen?
Yeah, so it points out warnings for you and all sorts. So like it'll say like this person's crossing the road, that sort of stuff. This person's pulling out. It's really cool, really really cool. Yeah, so it's sort of like combining the AI stuff with. It almost feels like that progression to full autonomous. Like you'll have this sort of helping hand first, which a lot of companies are doing now, and they have been doing for years with sensors and everything else. But you'll have this dashboard that sort of is AI driven, and it can show you like where the hazards are and all that sort of stuff. And it could potentially have its benefits as well in driving lessons and things like that as well. So yeah, it's really interesting. Now it could, to be honest, it could just fall flat on its face and people don't want it. It doesn't. I think it's cool. Would I want it? I don't know. Depends how much it costed and everything else. But yeah,
and how easy it was.
Yeah, exactly. It may just clog your vision rather than help you. It may just hinder you with unnecessary things that you don't really want to know. Yeah, and but no, and just little things like if it identifies a bird as a hazard or just stupid things like that you wouldn't even really be that bothered about. It could potentially bring up things that you weren't potentially that bothered about. But I thought it was interesting anyway. How they were doing it, and it could even become a technology in its own. As it develops and self-driving develops, and you end up with more things on the windscreen rather than on a display. I don't know.
So presumably it's non-invasive.
It is.
It's sort of
it's almost on the peripheral.
Yeah.
But where I do see it very useful, and whenever we're not really, I can't see us having self-riding motorcycles. That just seems your body has to be prepared for those movements and things. So that just would never make sense in my opinion. So, it's very interesting in the motorcycle space if they extend to there as well, because then you end up with that. It's almost like it's almost like Microsoft HoloLens, if anyone's aware of that, where it's augmented reality of your face, and that really does enhance you and your ability to see hazards and things like that, and that's really important in
as a motorbike rider myself, one thing that is a bit annoying, particularly if there's a lot going on around you, is then having to look down. Maybe there's a speed camera coming up or whatever else, and there's lots of things happening around you, so you've got lots of hazards, lots of potentials, lots of problems, lots of dangers, and then having to look down to see or to make sure that you're doing 30 or to check the dashboard for whatever reason. That's time where that your eyes are off the road. And so if you had the augmented reality in your visor, then you would not ever have to do that. And that is a major benefit for motorcycling.
Yeah, for sure. And as well, if they start adding like sensors onto the helmet and stuff like that, it can look behind you. It can warn you of things that are behind. Yeah, there's a lot of that. I think there's actually more value for it in motorcycles than there are on cars, in my opinion. But yeah,
I agree. Yeah. Watch this space.
Yeah, Wayray, they're called. If anyone wants to get on with them, they're really cool. They're a Swiss company, I believe. Yeah, so
very cool. Okay, well,
exactly.
Good quality.
There's another company called Patio. So not patio as in like they fit things in the garden. It's Patio, Pateo. They're a Chinese company. They make AR. They very similar things. AR HUD clusters, but they also do a lot more than that. They're almost more of a whole ecosystem thing. Now, I don't believe they are a startup. They seem a bit more developed, and they're in sort of the public eye a little bit more than Wayray are. But they seem to be doing a lot more of the whole infrastructure. So like in-vehicle payments, AR, like I said, HUD clusters. But they're also thinking about how people interact with these things as well. So they do a lot of like eye tracking and gesturing and that sort of stuff for Baidu. So Baidu's looking at doing that self-driving car and stuff like that. They're working with them as well. But what I also found interesting was that they almost feel like a competitor to Google in a slight way, and it's interesting that they've gone with Baidu as well. Is that they're trying to integrate other data sources as well. So they've shown this really interesting graphic on their website of a bit like what you were mentioning with the BMW iDrive a little bit, but this guy was going to an airport and it was showing him that it's going to take you this long to get to the airport and your flight leaves in 2 hours. And it was like integrating it with his sort of other data sources that he'd got in his life, and putting that into the car and showing him now, so it would be like self-driving you there, and you need to leave at this time. You'll get there for this time. Your flight leaves here, and it was telling them the specific flight and everything else. So it's bringing all these data sources into one thing and into the car, which I found really interesting. And they were doing as well, sort of like cybersecurity, and we've spoke about that issue before, of like over-the-air updates and all that sort of stuff. They're bringing that into it as well. So they're doing like the whole ecosystem. So that they're a really interesting company as well.
Yeah, I'm just looking at them now. They are very interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Very interesting. I think because that's all they do, then there is a definite benefit to them. Because I know that a lot of companies, traditionally and now, try to keep a lot of these things in-house, and they try to keep them proprietary and not really let you know anything about them. But there's a lot to be said for a company who's just specializing in one thing, doing one thing really well. And it looks like that's what they're trying, isn't it? They're trying to just do one thing, and it's a cluster of things, obviously.
Yeah, but one space.
Really well. And that's hardware and software. Yeah, one space, exactly. Yeah. Very interesting. I'd like to have a little play with that system. It looks very cool. They got a piece of hardware actually that connects up all of those things to it.
I saw that. Is it an NXP board? Are you looking at the same graphic? Yeah.
It looks like it. Yeah.
Anyway, get the geeky side out.
Yeah, we'll have to have a look at that. Absolutely, yeah. No, we're trying not to be too geeky on this. So,
but yes. So the last company that I looked at was a company called Exona Space Systems. Now, they're doing stuff around...
Where do they come up with these things?
I don't know. But yeah, they do... Okay. Now, I don't know how successful they're going to be, but the idea is very cool. So they've done like the Starlinks that Elon Musk's put up into space. So they've done like these orbiting satellites that essentially pass the internet to more areas of the earth and gives better coverage for the internet. Now these guys are trying to do the same but for autonomous driving. Now I don't know whether Elon's going to try and do the same. It doesn't seem like that from Tesla's approach, but these guys are thinking about doing it so your car would essentially be driven by these satellites, and it's really, really accurate, low latency navigation from space.
So I mean, you may not know the answer to this one. What happens when you go under a tunnel?
I've always been intrigued by that. I don't know, but that's the sort of thing. It's like GPS speed systems, isn't it? Like they're really accurate, more accurate than a speedometer can be in your car at the moment. But they just die when you go under a tunnel.
Yeah. One minute you're doing 30, the next minute you're doing 0. Even though you're still traveling.
I don't know. I don't know how they're managing that. Unless it's the type of I don't know if there is a type of wave that can go through, not that wouldn't harm people.
Well, I mean, all of these things have a limit, and if you're under a fairly thick tunnel, it's going to be near impossible. I would have thought,
unless they have repeaters.
I could be wrong.
It's a big infrastructure.
I don't think I am.
Yeah,
unless there's a repeater.
That's a massive infrastructure. It feels like you're trying to build. Unless you can piggyback onto something else that you already I don't know, Wi-Fi routers, or I don't know what's.
Well, maybe even into the 5G system, that's being developed. If this Zona or Exona are able to sort of plug down into the 5G system, so that whenever there is line of sight, they'll take it from there, and then when there's not, it just automatically hooks onto the 5G system, and off you go again.
Yeah.
I suppose that provides a bit of redundancy as well to the 5G system. Then it doesn't put too much pressure on it, on the infrastructure for 5G, except where there's tunnels, caves, whatever that you're going through. That's really interesting. So they're not actually producing an infotainment system as such.
It was just an interesting startup, to be honest. I was going more down the route of like, when I was thinking about this podcast, was user experience and how that all this is going to come into effect, affect you. And this was an interesting startup that could have will potentially affect your user experience.
Yeah, and potentially in a very positive way. And
they could also provide internet connection and everything else. I don't know what their vision is, but if they're going to do the same thing as Starlink.
Well, they're saying encrypted data, precision corrections, stronger signals, faster convergence. So there's no reason why it couldn't be, as long as it's two-way. It could certainly be a platform for
but it does almost feel like a bit like not the .com bubble, but there's a lot of these companies spinning up at the minute, doing some really cool things. It's just a watch this space. Cream rises to the top, and there will be what is left. But it's really exciting to see these guys pushing each other and all these different things that are coming out of the automotive industry.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, trying to look at them differently, from a different angle, and that's really cool. And these guys are great. A great company to follow, I think, to see how they get on. So I think in the future, let's look out for these guys and see if we can sort of give some periodic updates now and again as to how they're getting on.
Perhaps have someone from there on the podcast. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if they speak English,
I'm not sure.
Where are they from? Let's see if we can contact them. They're California. Okay. Yeah. There you go. I didn't see that coming, actually. I thought they were going to be Far Eastern for some reason. I don't know why. It's just the name, Zona. But anyway, okay.
Yep.
So that's all of